Hello, everybody, and welcome to Live from NCCE. My name is Jeff Bradbury, and welcome. We have a fantastic show tonight featuring the amazing Tisha Richmond, my good friend, and I am so happy to have her on. Tish, how are you today? Welcome to the program.
Hi, Jeff. I am excellent. I'm so excited to be here with you and everyone tonight.
I am so excited to have you on. It is great to have you. It is great to see you. We are, of course, broadcasting live on Facebook, on YouTube, and we are here celebrating not only the great stuff that's happening in education, but we are here to share with you guys an amazing conference that's going to be coming up in just a few weeks. We have the NCCE conference. Check out all the great stuff over at ncce.org/conference 2021. I'm looking forward to presenting at it. I hope you guys have a chance to go there too and check out all of that great stuff. And today, Tish, we're talking about something pretty magical, aren't we?
We are. I love talking about magic.
Why is magic so important?
Well, I was an educator back in 2014 that was really ready to leave the profession. And I was burnt out. I was frustrated. I was thinking about becoming a barista. That's where my mind was at the time. And that year was a magical year for me. It was really the catalyst year that started me on this journey of resparking my joy for education. I discovered technology. I brought iPads into my classroom. I discovered there were amazing conferences like iPad Palooza that I attended. I discovered Twitter and what it meant to be a connected educator and learn from people from all around the world. And that was when I really started to take some leaps and try new things and figure out how I could bring innovative ideas and technology into my culinary arts classroom. I've been a culinary arts teacher for 25 years, now a tech integration specialist, but it has been an absolutely magical journey. And so I love getting to share with others because, right now, I'm sure there's a lot of teachers who probably feel like I did in 2014. I burn out and done. And I want to be able to inspire and help others spark joy for teaching and learning again. Because, yeah.
I'm looking forward to today. If you guys are out there watching live on Facebook, on YouTube, please feel free to join in. We've got a lot of great resources tonight. We've got a lot of great links. We're going to be putting them in the chat, and we would love to hear your comments. If something that Tish is saying tonight is getting you and is magical, please let us know. We'd love to share it tonight on Live from NCCE. So, Tish, I'm going to get off the stage right now and give you the floor. Everybody, please, the great, the wonderful, the magical Tisha Richmond.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jeff. Well, today I am going to talk about board game remix because one of my absolute passions is to remix games. And so before I start, I want to just introduce myself. I am Tisha Richmond, a tech integration specialist and learning management coordinator in Southern Oregon. So I'm on the far other end of the country as Jeff. And I have been a family and consumer science educator for 25 years. And so just been in this new role as tech integration specialist the last few years. And I would love for you to connect with me. So you can find me on all the social media networks. I have my information right there for you. And I also have a podcast that I'd love for you to check out sometime. And you can find that on all of the platforms. A lot of the resources, actually all of the resources that I'm going to share tonight are on my website, tisharrichmond.com. We're going to be dropping the links in here as we go through the presentation, but you can also find them and more, lots more on tisharrichmond.com. So I don't know what your game closet looks like at home or if you have a game closet, but mine looks very much like this. I have an entire cabinet of board games. I've always loved board games. I love the collaboration, the creativity, just sitting around the dining room table with my family, with my friends, laughing and just enjoying the strategy, the chance, and all of the different elements that are incorporated in games. And so one of my very favorite things to do is to take those games from my game closet and think about how I can turn those into amazing, magical learning adventures for my students. And so tonight I'm going to share with you 3 of my board game creations. They're actually ones that I have created fairly recently. And so you'll find them all in my blog, and we'll be sharing those links with you. And they're games that you can play in the brick and mortar class or the remote learning class. There's different variations. And they really could work with a variety of age levels. So let's get started. I'm going to share with you some games that you can bring into your learning environment. So the first one is Treasure Hunt. And this one I designed really specifically for the remote learning environment, because I think one thing that educators are finding is that we're sitting at, and teach students too, is we are sitting and staring at screens all day. And sometimes we just need to get up and move around and get some mobility. And so this game allows that. It allows some of that kinesthetic activity. So the whole object of the game is to build in that kinesthetic movement, and then also get to practice parts of speech in your synchronous video conferencing class session, whether that is Zoom or Google Meets or any of the platforms out there that you might be in. So what you need for this particular game is you just need a list of nouns. So you're just going to come up with a list of nouns that you can think of. You could have your students generate that list too, which I would recommend. You need a digital spinner. So one like Word of Names works good. That's the one that I like to use, and a score pad. And so in this particular game, I'm going to share with you how you could do this for whole class gameplay. So what you're going to do first is you are going to create a wheel of adjectives on a digital spinner. So this particular one that I have on the screen is from Word of Names, or Wheel of Names. There's lots of different digital spinners out there that you can use. And so I just put in a bunch of different adjectives on that digital spinner. So what you're going to do next is, when you have your students in your video conferencing platform, you are going to shout out a noun. And when you shout out that noun and you've spun the spinner, so going back here, you have the spinner, you spin it, you're going to have, it's going to come up with an adjective, and then you're going to shout out a noun. When you shout out that noun, students have 60 seconds to find an item that fits that description. So if you spun, and let's say the word was red and the noun was shoe, they would try to find something within that amount of time that would fit either the description red or shoe. If they found something that, let's say, was red, but they didn't find the shoe, then they'd get 1 point. If they found a red shoe, then they would get 2 points. And so students are, and you can do this as long as you want. You could do it with just 2 or 3 words, so that you could just do it as like a brain break activity, or maybe just a warm-up activity at the beginning of class, or you can let it go on for much longer. You can decide the length of time that you want to go. And then the first student who gets to whatever that point total is. So let's say we do 15 points, but you could say the first person who gets to 5 points, or the first person who gets to 10 points. Again, that's up to you. And that's one of the things that I love about games, is that there's flexibility. You are the game designer. You can create the rules. And so you can change it up however you want to. There's also a small group variation of this game that you can do in breakout rooms. And so in this particular variation, in breakout groups of 4 to 6, students have 15 minutes to create their own wheel of adjectives. And depending on the age level, you might just make this 5 minutes. It may not take them long at all, especially if they've had experience working with a digital, spinner like this before. And then when you bring everybody out of the breakout rooms back into the whole class environment again, a team leader is chosen from each group to spin the adjective wheel that they created and shout out the noun on their turn. So that group will have their spinning wheel ready to go. And then the same thing will happen. Students will look for that adjective and that noun within the amount of time. And the play is going to continue to each team, with the team leader spinning the adjective wheel creation and shouting out the name that was generated from their list. Same thing as before. If a student gets one of those words, either the adjective or the noun, they get 1 point. If they get both of them, they get 2 points. And then the play continues as it did before. And so just a couple different variations that you could do with that game. Of course, when you are thinking about your content area, maybe you want to keep your words more geared towards your content area. Depending on the age level, you may decide on what kind of words you want to use, right? And things might be a little bit more abstract. As students get older, you could create different types of adjectives that allow for maybe a little bit more creativity in what they come up with. So a lot of variations. Also on my blog post for all of my culinary friends out there, I have some culinary variation too that you can do as students are playing this game. So just kind of a fun thing. Again, get kids moving, learn some parts of speech at the same time, especially for our littles, and just a fun little game to play. One extension activity that you can do with this is you could have each team after the game create a story using all the nouns and adjectives used in the game. And so they could do this, in written form, or they could use Google Docs or storyboard that, or Flipgrid, or any other digital tool where they could create their story. And that would be a really fun way to kind of take this particular game to the next level and extend it. They could also do that as an asynchronous activity. So if you're working in the synchronous classroom environment, whether it is brick and mortar or online, you could take this to the next level and maybe share out this extension in an asynchronous way. The other game that I'm going to share with you tonight is called Operation Reimagined. And this is more of a reflection game, really created to be used after maybe a team building or a collaborative activity that you do in your class, whether that is in the brick and mortar class or in a breakout room in synchronous remote learning. The object of this game is, first of all, it's based off of the actual board game Operation. And so what I did was I created a reflection card for every, what they call in the game, phanatomy part from the Operation game. And this game is really designed to help students process and debrief team activities that they experience in their learning environment. And so the way that this game is played is, first of all, you need the Operation Reflection slide deck. And so I believe that this link is getting shared in the chat. Again, I have these games on my website, so you can find all of the links you need there. And then you need a die for each team. And so this is if you were going to do it in the brick and mortar classroom. I know a lot of schools right now are moving to some type of a hybrid model where some days they're brick and mortar, some days they are not. And so thinking of different activities to kind of be able to use in both environments are really important. So for the brick and mortar environment, what you're going to do is you're going to download and print multiple copies of the slide presentation that I just showed you. So slide 4 and 5 are these cards that you see here. When you print them out, you can print them out as a PNG or JPEG. You're going to cut them up and you're going to shuffle them. And each team should have at least one of each card. Once they have their cards, they're going to put them face down on their table. And teams are divided up. So maybe you have 4 or 5 students on each team. And then once you have those deck of cards and they're upside down, then what's going to happen next is each player is going to roll the die and they're going to pick up the corresponding numbers of cards. So if you roll a 3, then that player is going to pick up 3 cards from the deck. And then they are going to basically decide which one of those cards they want to reflect on. And so a student would then take that card and then they would share their reflection, their answer with the team. And then the play would continue to go clockwise until either all the students have answered at least once, or maybe when the time is up. So if a teacher wanted to allocate maybe 10 minutes or 20 minutes for this activity, when the timer was up, then wherever that group stopped would be where you stop this game. So you can add some twists to this game. So one twist is if you actually may have, which some of you might have, the game of Operation in your game closet right now. All you need is one Operation game. You can bring it into your classroom and maybe set it somewhere in the middle or maybe at the front of the room. And then what happens is once a student on a team answers the prompt, then they can come up and try to remove that particular phenatomy part from Cavity Sam. If they remove it successfully, then they get the points associated with that phenatomy part for their team. And then once it is removed, it comes out of play. And so then if another student got that, then they wouldn't be able to get the points for that particular card. And you'll notice at the bottom that each card has a certain amount of money associated with it. So just kind of another fun way that you can change up and add a little twist to the game. Again, there are so many different ways that we can play these games. And so maybe as I'm talking, you're like, well, I actually think it would be better played this other way. Awesome. There are endless possibilities for just taking these ideas and making them your own and making them fit your content. Maybe you want to take those cards and you want to create different types of prompts for them. That is totally fine too. That is what is so magical about bringing games into the classroom. So each team's points are tallied by the teacher, and the team with the most at the end of the allotted time wins the game. So just another way that you can do this. For an asynchronous twist to this game, you can use Flipgrid. And I actually have an Operation game on Flipgrid. So if you search the Flipgrid library under Tisha Richmond, you will find the Operation reflection. And I have embedded a spinning wheel in that Flipgrid, and I have all of the reflection questions here. And so you could have your students do this in an asynchronous way as well. If you go on to the blog that I have added, I think it's added in the chat, then you will also find a way to do this synchronously online. So lots of different variations that you can use. The last game that I am going to share with you is called Squiggle Your Way to Learning. And this game is so much fun. And it all was generated from a game that I purchased for my kids for Christmas. So in our family, we always have a game that we open on New Year's Eve. It's kind of our tradition. And when I saw this game called Happy Little Accidents, it's a Bob Ross game at Target, I knew that I knew that our family would love it. It's just right up our alley. And so I bought the game. We played it. We had a blast, lots of laughter, lots of creativity. And I thought immediately, this is definitely a game that you could bring into your classroom. And so again, the link is being shared, and it is all of everything that you need for this game you can find in the blog post. But the object of the game is to learn subject-related terms, vocabulary, and concepts while promoting creativity, team building in a fun, engaging learning atmosphere. So here is the remote classroom version of this game. So you are going to create a Jamboard, and you can create your own, but you don't have to because I've already created one for you. And so I believe that link is also being shared in the chat, but you can also find it in the blog post, and you can just make a copy of the Jamboard that I already created. Then what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to create a spinner with your students' names on it using some type of a digital spinner. I use the wheel of names. And what's neat about this is once you create your spinner of your students' names, you can use this for a variety of different things in your classroom. It doesn't have to be just for this game. You can save it and then use it again and again. So you'll notice that on this wheel of names that every student has a different color behind their name. That color is indicating the team that that student is on. So once you've created that wheel, what you're going to do is you're going to bring all your students together in whatever video platform that you have, and you're going to explain the rules, and you're going to share a link in the chat to your Jamboard. Then you're going to spin the wheel, and that is going to determine the judge for that particular round. And everybody's going to get in their Jamboard, and they're going to claim a slide number ahead of time. So in Jamboard, there's 20 different slides. So if you have a class more than 20 kids, you might have 2 to a slide. And so they're all going to claim it, and they can put their names somewhere on that slide. And then you are going to call out a word. And what happens is that you will set a timer for 30 seconds, and they have 30 seconds to turn that squiggle into that word. And this can be an abstract word. It could be more of a concrete word. It could be a phrase. I played this game with in a professional development I did recently, and I used the phrase "take a leap." And it was amazing, the illustrations that were generated from a simple squiggle from the phrase "take a leap." And so when students are playing this game, they're really getting to tap into their creativity. They're getting some laughter. They are getting to maybe think differently about a concept than they've thought about before. And they also can bond as a class as they're sharing their illustrations of how they turned this squiggle into something. It's a lot of fun. And so then what will happen is that you'll spin the wheel after everybody has done their squiggles, and the first 4 that are selected are the ones that are going to share their drawings, and they're going to explain in front of the video platform class how it connects with the word. And then that one person that was chosen as the judge is going to think about which of those words has the best overall connection. And it's, I think, a really fun way that you can, again, get your kids connecting and creating and thinking about vocabulary and concepts that you have in your class. So, so whatever color team, so let's say that the judge chose a particular student's creation. Whatever color is behind that person on the wheel, that's the team they're on. That particular team color is the one that gets the point. And so that is how the play continues. And you could, again, do this for however long you want. You, as the teacher, can decide what the length of time is that you want to play this game. And it might be one that you come to again and again over time. And the more students are used to playing it, kind of the faster the game can go, which is kind of fun too. So if you, for the next round, what would happen is that students would clear their boards, and then they would draw their own squiggle for the next one. And the same gameplay would continue over and over again. And so a Jamboard is a wonderful digital tool that's part of the Google Suite that you can use for in so many different ways. It's a digital whiteboard that can be used in lots of collaborative ways. So those are the 3 games that I had to share with you tonight. And I'm going to come back to the chat here in just a second. I would love to hear games that you love to play in your class. I would love to hear your ideas for maybe taking those games and being able to add your own variations to them. I would love for you to connect with me. You can find me at Tish Rich on Twitter. You can find me at Make Learning Magical on Instagram. Please, again, I'd love for you to tune into my Make Learning Magical podcast, which Jeff Bradbury happens to have been a guest a few episodes back. So you'll definitely want to check out that episode. And you can also find all of these resources and more on tisharrichmond.com. And that is the podcast logo you're going to be looking for. And I also have this super fun show that is just right up my alley in my love for games that I have every other Friday with Jennifer Casa-Todd, the author of Social Lydia, and Mandy Freilich, who is the author of multiple books. Jennifer Casa-Todd has an amazing children's book out too. We have this show where we have a mystery guest every episode, and two of us are trying to figure out who the guest is before our audience does. It's fun. There's laughter. Learning's optional, but fun is definitely mandatory. So I would love for you to check out that. You can find it streamed on Facebook and YouTube as well. So thank you all so much for being here tonight. And I would love to answer questions. I think we might have a few minutes left.
Tish, you are awesome. You are absolutely amazing. Dare I say magical. Thank you so much for everything tonight. There are many questions. And, our friend Jason here says thank you. And there's a lot of people out there, I know, clapping out there on Facebook, on YouTube. If you have a question, we have a few minutes left. Please put your questions in the chat. Tish, I have a question for you here. We've talked a lot on the coaching front, and the question I have here, it's one thing to be magical yourself. It's another thing to impart magic on another educator. If you were a coach and you had all of these great ideas, what are some pieces of advice that you would have for a coach to say, use these with other teachers? How do you introduce these? Some people might look at this and go, it's a little bit much. It's a little scary. I'm not sure if I'm ready. Talk to those coaches that are out there. How do we bring magic into our teachers' classrooms?
Yeah. Well, I think for one, modeling it, is good, and being able to actually have them experience this as a student and see how it's played. I think that is an important piece. I think too, like introducing some of these tools that we're using in the game, so those aren't so scary. When you're introducing a game and there's digital tools that you've never seen before or used, then it might seem a little bit less approachable because they haven't had experience. And so making sure that your teachers are familiar with those tools. And, I always found when I brought in new ideas to my classroom, I told my students that, we're trying this new thing. I have kind of an idea how it's going to work, but we've never played it before. So this is new. And I want you to be on this learning adventure with me. And so I'm going to need your help. And I think sometimes just saying that and realizing that you don't have to be perfect, and inviting your students on that learning adventure with you to try new things, it takes a little bit of that fear away. And I found that my students really appreciated that when I asked them to learn along with me. It made me realize I did not have to be perfect.
Now, what if a teacher comes to you and says, I have an idea for this thing. I have a bunch of board games in my house. Where do I start? I noticed you have Jamboard. You got some Google products. There's some, non-Google Microsoft. Where would you usually tell a teacher to start if they have an idea? Yeah,
well, I first of all would have a notebook or something where you collect all of the ideas you have. So if you are playing a game with your family or your friends, write down the ideas that come to you. If you're watching reality television shows, the game shows that are on television, so many of my ideas have come from there. Write those down and just start collecting all of them. And sometimes I find that I write down ideas, but I really don't see how they would actually connect into learning. And then all of a sudden I might be just going on a walk or I might be like drifting off to sleep. And all of a sudden, like, whew, it all connects. And then I think about, oh my goodness, I am teaching this concept in class next week. I bet I could use, the wheel of names for this particular thing. Or I could, use those operation reflection, question. I could use this idea in this game to reflect on an activity that I'm doing. And so it sometimes your ideas aren't going to all come at once. It's just collecting them and letting your mind start to connect the dots.
We have a question here from Jason Knifer. He says, what other board games would you recommend as fodder for reworking in the classroom? Something I was thinking about when I was going through the presentation today of what else is out there. What do you think?
Yeah. I love using Cranium. If you haven't used Cranium, there's different, like there's a sculpting, there's a charades element, there's different types of elements to that game. And I believe I created a game for that. I'm not sure if it's on my website. I know it's in my book. But that is one that I've loved using in the classroom. It works a little bit better in the brick and mortar classroom environment. Code names, if you've ever played Code Names before, I created a game for that one that's really fun to use, and you can play that either digitally or in a brick and mortar classroom as well. So that is one that I would definitely check out. I would think about, another one that I created a game for is Press Your Luck. Do you remember that game?
I do.
From my childhood. I loved that game.
It's on Amazon Movies.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and they just kind of have done a new revamp of some of those classic games. And so I was watching that game over the holidays, and I started getting excited because I thought we could play this in the classroom. And so if you look for I think it's called No Whammies is the name of my blog post. Look for my blog post, and I have the game that I created from that show.
We have time for one more question. Oh, coming in. Who's your favorite podcast guest recently? No, never mind.
Well, I mean, no brainer.
Tish, we want to say thank you on behalf of everybody here on NCCE for checking it out. And of course, we are here live from NCCE every single Thursday. We've got a great show for you coming up next week. Don't forget to check out Eileen Heller. She's got a great session called Let's Blend Up Learning with Station Rotation in an online or hybrid environment. Don't forget to check that out. And of course, don't forget to check out the NCCE conference that's coming up. You can check that out over at ncce.org/conference 2021. Great activities, great learning, and I know I'll be there having some good times. So check out the NCCE conference live coming up in just a few great weeks. And that wraps up this episode of Live from NCCE. On behalf of Tish, and everybody here on the on NCCE, my name is Jeff Bradbury, reminding you guys to keep up the great work in your classrooms and continue sharing your passions with your students. Good night, everybody.